this is the Annapolis Transportation Board with our monthly meeting on April 21st, 2025. I will call out the people I see on screen for secretary, but I think, where did he go? Oh, there you are. Sorry. So Forrest, I see Kurt, I see John Giannetti, I see Zoe Johnson, David DeQuinzio, and Taylor Waters from the committee. I see Jessica Karachi with the Office of Law and Karma O'Neill. Everyone has the agenda. Were there any additions or alterations to the agenda? All right. We are tabling review of the minutes until next time. Forrest is going to catch up on March and April, so we'll have both of those for you for review and approval in the May meeting. There is no public participation to my knowledge. And keep me honest, guys, on the agenda. It is sort of hard, Kurt, when you've only got one screen and Zoom takes up the whole screen to have your agenda up at the same time. So,
yeah, I had two screens.
Well done. Ed Bergman has joined. Karma, would you like to give us a city council update?
Sure, thank you. A few things are on the city council agenda regarding transportation. I think that you guys are going to be discussing the speed camera legislation that was recently approved by the council. And that is important legislation. I will say that it is, there's a state law that we could not have speed cameras in any place except for a certain distance from schools. And I think it was 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
And last year, the state changed that law that said you could put speed cameras in other places if you had due cause. So the council took upon itself to do legislation that says, we acknowledge the state's change. We'd like to use speed cameras in specific places. Currently, there is not funding for speed cameras, but we're hoping to accomplish that in this year's budget. We've had a couple of sessions with the police department, and they talked about some of their concerns with the speed cameras. And sorry, I'm burning my dinner. And so there were certain, the one thing is current state law says that you have to have a uniformed officer review speed camera data. And if any tickets were issued, it had to be a uniformed officer that was handling that review. So we are looking to the state to ask them to change that, to alter that so that it could possibly be somebody else. There is a lot of legal ramifications for that, obviously. And because the Annapolis Police Department has routinely for the past 4 or 5 years been short on officers, that makes it really hard for them to take an officer off a patrol and have them reviewing speed camera data. So those are some things that we're working through. As you guys discuss it, it would be great if you could, you know, make suggestions, comments, using your expertise to see how we can overcome some of those hurdles. I know
Karma, my wife got nailed for a school bus violation, and indeed the county did review that violation with a uniformed police officer. That's very much a part of how the rest of the state is doing it. So
right,
that's reality.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to, you know, take a look at that. So there's going to be a lot more discussion on that. I believe that is the transportation director or deputy director online? I don't see that. Oh, Kwaku is. I'm sure that he will talk more about the report that was just published. We're going to have a presentation on that at the next Transportation Committee meeting in May, which actually got moved to May 7th. So it'll be in 3 weeks.
You're talking about the 5-year plan?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And for everyone's awareness, 20 minutes before the meeting, I did find, I asked Kwaki for the report. We do have the draft report and it was sent to you via email 20 minutes before the meeting.
Right. And anybody that wants more information on it can tune into that transportation committee meeting as well when they're giving the presentation to kind of go through the data. Other parking issues, I know that we are working on updating and revising the parking district, which is District 4 and the Clay Street area. That district currently has a parking permit that runs 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and we are looking to change that 8 a.m. to midnight. The most complaints that we receive from that area are evening parkers, people that are coming home from work and don't have any place to park because well, part of the problem is that there are 6 Airbnbs that seem to take up a lot of street parking on Clay Street area. So we are looking to make that change and that will come before you hopefully in the next month or two to make that change. And we are working on the parking garages. I've asked Metropolis to give us data and a report at the next Transportation Committee meeting that talks about how many people go into the garage now that they're gateless and don't start a parking event per se. How many people park. They have data on how many times somebody has parked, especially if it's been a person that hasn't started a parking event. There is a $50 fine for that. And so they'll be giving us data on that. And I'm working with Alderman Savage and Alderman Huntley to work through some of the issues that we're having with Hillman Garage. That one is a little bit trickier because we are held to the public-private partnership, the PPP. And contracted wise, we can't just use a resolution to make changes to that. But we have had extensive meetings on that and hopefully we will have a more affirmative answer in the next month as far as how that is going, the data that we've been asking for. And currently, if you go in and you sign up that says that you are staying for 2 hours, but you stay out for 2 hours and 15 minutes, you get a $50 fee because they have read the code to say that you have overstayed your meter, basically. And my argument is that a meter has a time limit on it and the garage does not. And so you shouldn't be charged for overstaying your estimated time. If you're going to be charged at all, you should either be charged for a lost ticket because they don't know how long you've parked, or you simply should be charged for the extra hour that you're there, even if it's only 15 minutes of that hour.
Yes.
We are trying to get that to take place. It is a lot of moving parts. It is a lot of back and forth and negotiation. So I know that it's been a long time in coming, but I think that we're getting closer and closer. So to an answer on that one. Other than that, we did start budget hearings today. While they're not specifically about transportation, budget hearings with the finance department and each city department take place over the next 2 weeks, Monday through Thursday, 9:30 to 1:30. You could zoom in to see which one. I am happy to send you a schedule of who we're hearing from each day. So if you're interested in one department over another, you can tune in during that time.
I have a question on terminology. This $50 fine, I think it's probably, but if you can confirm, I'd really appreciate it. In the case of Metropolis, I think it really is a fine because the city collects that money. In the case of the Hillman Garage, it is not a fine. It's just a parking fee because the authority collects the money. Isn't that correct?
I don't know the answer to that. I can double check on that. The city ultimately gets a portion of that in the what's called the waterfall payment. So once premium has met their expenses and their contracted amount, then the additional funds get put into the city fund to create that waterfall. I have been asking for the data on what that looks like, how much of the waterfall is due to those $50 fines, how much of the waterfall was dependent on fines, because I think that that is the wrong way to do a projected budget, is budgeting on how many fines you're going to collect from people. There's a lot of things that are questionable in the way that that I believe that the way that that is being operated. And being accounted for. So we're waiting all of that. Like I said, we have to be careful because of the legality of the contract that the city signed, the terminology that they are using, the code that they're using to do that $50 fine. I've questioned it and I've been told by legal that I need to be careful. So
Yeah, I understand. It is complex, and I wish you well on weaving your way through that complexity. But it's very clear to me that the city should push, and I encourage you to push just as hard as you can to make overstays simply billed at the parking rate, not billed as a fine. And a fine may be appropriate if there's no check-in at all, but it's not appropriate in my view for a simple overstay.
right.
Yeah, thank you, Alderwoman. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you very much for your report. I have two questions for you. Number one, has the council talked about if you don't want to use a police officer as the verifying person, obviously state code has to be changed. What is the level of officer? What is the name of the officer they would find acceptable if we had to ask state code to be changed?
We haven't gotten that far yet because we would first need to have state code changed. We would first need to probably do an assessment on, who could be authorized to do that. Obviously, other jurisdictions, other states have the ability to have speed cameras in places outside of schools. Washington, I got a report on Washington, D.C., and they made like $1 million on their, obviously they're bigger, but on their speed cameras over the course of, I think, 23, 24. So there is a way to make it profitable. So it would actually pay for whatever officer. It's just taking a uniformed officer off the streets doesn't make much sense when we're trying to make the streets safer.
Right, and I understand that. And just to follow up a little bit, and I have one more question about the parking. I would hope that the government would never make, just as a philosophical, the government would never want to make breaking the law profitable to a government. I mean, we never want to be that way. So I don't hope that we never want to have our government doing that. Second is, thank you very much. I was able to get a good, I've had very good response, or people have said that they're being a citizen of the city of Annapolis, you get a discount at Gott's Garage. I know it's a different process in Hillman. I've never done it at Hillman. Have you gotten any concerns about that, and what is being done to make sure that the citizens get a discount when they go into Hillman?
This has been rehashed several times over the past few months.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
So
I'm sorry. Good.
I'm gonna move the agenda along. I do want to say on the speed camera legislation, Karma, I believe I looked at the records today. I think it's already passed. I think so that legislation is active. There's really nothing for us to comment on or to wordsmith. I would say though, I find the lack of real financial review. If a ticket is limited to $40 based on the state legislation, and we know what it costs to have an officer, and we can estimate what it costs an officer to review a ticket and actually process it, it seems to me you should know quite hard-coded what it would cost you in terms of number of tickets, violations, and how much you would collect versus what it would cost to pull that officer off the street, right? I mean, that should be fairly easy to figure out. And I don't believe I saw that anywhere in the financial analysis. So I think that would be the next step that the council really ought to take before you think about how many cameras you want to install. You know, what would really be the output? You're not going to be Washington, D.C., but where is the real, you know, do you want to spend the money for safety? Do you want it to be break even if you think it will be break even? But you know, I think that sort of analysis could easily be papered and would be good to share with folks when you roll out additional cameras, if you do.
Right, exactly. The legislation that we passed just basically accepted the fact that we are acknowledging the state's change in law, and we would like to explore options for speed cameras. So our next step would be determining where those were and the cost associated,
Right.
cost and benefit, I
Right.
guess, associated with both. So that is the next step. That's where I was asking for input from transportation.
And there is a distinction, folks, between speed cameras as well as people running red lights. So keep that in mind as you review. Any other questions for Karma?
Yeah, final one. Who determines where the cameras are placed?
That would be a study based on, I believe, Department of Public Works, the police departments, and probably the city manager's office. Once the council, I know that a couple of people have said, hey, we'd really like one here.
Yeah,
Clay
I would
Street
think there
wants
would
one.
be, it's kind of a dynamic need. It will change with time.
Right. And that's something that we talked about a little bit offline, is like, are we able to have speed cameras that perhaps move about? So if you have one in a location for, 2 to 3 months, and it seems to have slowed people down, then are you able to move that speed camera very easily and efficiently to another location?
Recognizing
we-
that the minute you do that, it's 30 days of the camera being offline in terms of collecting, because you have to have notice to the public when you've moved a camera, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
So it
there's
gets
a lot
more
of
complex.
intricacies there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sounds like we need your help, Tara.
Well, thank you, Karma, for the update. Any other questions for Karma?
I just maybe have more of a statement than a question. I don't know if y'all use the Nextdoor app at all. But I noticed maybe 2 or 3 days ago, somebody on there had commented on a speed camera going up on Edgewood Road, and I just jumped in and participated in that conversation because it seemed relevant to what we have going on, and obviously it's part of our agenda. And just asked for comments from people on that road in particular. It seemed like there was it was 50-50 between negative and positive responses for having a speed camera on Edgewood Road, but in general in Annapolis. How has the public kind of been notified of this, and what like how are we able to placate them? Like, how are we able to kind of tell them that these cameras are the best option, rather than like their suggestions for raising the speed limit on the road, making crosswalks more visible and having notices that say that you have to stop for pedestrians? Why is the speed camera route the one that the city wants to go down?
Well, I will honestly say that I didn't realize that there was already one in place going on Edgewood Road, and that might just be speculation there.
I think it is speculation. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say there is. It was speculation that, and somebody said, "Oh, I talked to Rob about speed camera already." I'm more interested in how we are getting this information to the public and how much we are looking at public opinion when it comes to making these decisions. If it's something that truly matters, or if it's more we believe that this is the right decision to make and we're going to make it.
No, it's completely, a lot of it is public dependent, and the legislation we passed allows us to do it. It doesn't mean that we're going out tomorrow and doing it.
Gotcha.
There is a lot of background, as Tara mentioned, and analysis as to whether it actually is going to make sense. There were a couple of spaces that were identified when we were talking about the legislation that somebody basically wishfully thinking said, yes, I think that this would be really amazing. When we have put up the speed cameras in some spaces, like there was one on Farragut Road, 2 or 3 years. Well, maybe it was 4 years ago. I got caught like 3 times because
Yeah.
it's at the bottom of a hill and you're coming up over a hill and all of a sudden you have to reduce down by, 10 miles per hour. So there are a lot of things that are going to come into play, and it might be decided that the best thing for Cedar Park Road is not a speed camera, but so a road diet, or something like what we put over in West Annapolis 2 years ago. The stanchions in the center, kind of.
Yep.
So traffic calming opportunities. It opens up some options more than just traffic calming. If we decided that one road, I'll throw out Cedar Park Road, if we decided that that needed a second camera. There is one camera on Cedar Park Road closer to Taylor Avenue. And so, that is definitely something to be considered. And is that when helping, is it's benefiting and making people go slower, or have people grown accustomed to it and they go slow past it and then speed up again?
Beat up past it. It's like, yeah. Like the
Which
one
is
on
likely.
Forest Drive by Annapolis Middle School. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So there is a lot more analysis that'll go into it, and there will be a lot of public discussion about before we put one out. So your question about how will the public be notified, we do it through social media channels,
Yeah.
through press releases, and through options, such as that.
Yeah.
So,
And I think one of the comments I kind of read that was interesting to me was people kind of claiming that these speed cameras were a money grab. What I would imagine that the explanation to that is that, one, we don't have enough officers to be able to have officers stationed to not have speed cameras and just have an officer look after the road. So this is a way to make the road safe while still, punishing to an extent. I don't know if there's a better word to use, reprimanding the people who do speed and make the roads a bit more dangerous. I like speed cameras. I think it's a great way to automate a part of an officer's job that can be kind of random. And especially with that, I've had an opportunity to talk with a number of officers here that work downtown on weekend nights, and the idea that they don't have a lot of a lot of officers has been like that for years, like you said. So I'd imagine this is something that takes something off their plate. I would hope that we can make that obvious to the public, and make it more like this. We need to be able to make the road safe. We don't have the people to do so. So we have to bring in these automated systems to be able to do that.
right. That's the direction I think that we're taking a look at.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Kwaku,
Hi,
how are you?
very good. And you?
Oh, thanks.
Is Marcos here? No?
No, but I think he was, this is a PTO day for him because I
Oh,
got
okay.
a
Okay.
return
Yeah,
mail that
just
said he
wanted
was
to make
out.
sure that if he's here, then he takes the podium.
No,
All right,
no,
well-
it's on you. It's on you tonight.
The main thing I would like to talk about is the transit development plan, what you did at request. We plan to do the presentation before council next week, Monday, at the regular council meeting, short presentation. And after that, we will take questions from that. If Beth Dozal is here, basically, Beth, the plan actually consists of the various tech memos that the advisory group did review, and then we put them together as the draft plan. Chapter 6, which may be of more interest because that is where you see the various recommendations based upon short-term, medium-term, and long-term. So if you want to see what the plan is proposing, you can actually go to chapter 6, I believe, and that is where you see the recommendations. It contains a lot of analysis, population analysis, land use, economic growth, major activity centers that actually bring all of them together to determine the transit-dependent population or areas where we think we will need to improve our transit delivery system. So I will leave it here, but if you have read it and have any questions for me, I may be able to answer. If not, you can send any questions you have as the board to me, and then we can also take a look at it. Remember, the plan that is going before council is a draft. It's not a final version. The final version comes after we have received council comments, and of course, the transportation committee and the transportation board comments, and we will incorporate that to make them the final plan. So remember, there is still opportunity for the board to go through and make comments in terms of how we want to move forward with the delivery of bus transit services in the Annapolis area.
You also could reach out, besides Kwaku, you could also reach out to Beth Dolezal, who was the transportation board representative on the plan.
And we like her a lot because she asks a lot of questions, frankly. The other thing I think Alderwoman Kama talked about it, our budget presentation before the finance committee is this Thursday. I believe it's around 10:45. So if anybody is interested, the transportation budget is of course in the budget book. I believe if you look at page 118 onwards, you find the budget there.
Thanks, Kwaku, we'll look. So I did have one question from what I read on this study. So there was this finding of how many bus stops in Annapolis don't have ADA or wheelchair access. And I sort of want to know why it matters, right? If I'm in a wheelchair and I can get to the sidewalk and the bus pulls up and it's got a drop down where then I go from the sidewalk onto the bus, why does it matter whether or not there's a cutout for wheelchairs at the bus stop? So I leave that thought with you. It sort of didn't make sense to me why we're pointing out the lack of these cutouts at all these bus stops. And I can imagine the city planners thinking they have to do this to be ADA compliant when the buses actually drop to the sidewalk. So I think it's not an issue.
Buses, lowers down,
right?
Yeah,
so
it may refer to where we have, you may refer to where we have the bus stop. So where the bus stop shelter is, people may want to get into the shelter. I may have to look at it carefully, but on top of my head, that is what it could be. Because if you have somebody in a wheelchair trying to wait for the bus, and there is a shelter, you expect the bus stop shelter needs to be ADA accessible so that you can roll your wheelchair into the shelter. I think that is what it refers to.
All right, I'll take another look. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody have questions for Kwaku? I did send around, as I said earlier, the draft report, and also all of the documents that led up to the draft report, which are the fact-finding documents. There are 5 of them. They are available on the AnnapolisTransitPlan.com website, so you can find all of the items that Kwaku has just referred to. Kurt?
I have actually a motion. I think it's important that the Transportation Board review and provide the city with comments in advance of final action by the city council. And so I move that our chair organize a disciplined review and our board comments on the draft so that any changes that we feel should be made can be made.
Second the motion.
Vote? Approval?
Yeah.
So Taylor, are you in? Vince, are you in? David's in. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hands up that I can see. So I think we're good.
Yeah,
The motion passes.
before we
Pardon me?
finalize that, are you talking about the 5-year transportation plan or
Yes.
the speed camera legislation?
No, the ADP.
5-year transportation
Okay.
plan.
The TDP.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to check.
Is your vote affirmed?
Mhm.
Okay, so Kurt, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post that on a shared site that everybody can go in and comment on one document. So everybody.
Great, and you can organize them into something that's coherent.
Okay. Tara, just one quick comment on the documents online. The various tech memos are actually in the draft plan. So
Okay.
If you're reading the draft plan, you don't need the tech memos.
Okay.
The tech memos were the initial series that the advisory group reviewed and basically put it in there. So whether it's the review of the existing service, which is one tech memo, you can find it as a chapter in the draft plan.
Okay,
the
so if we
same
could all,
thing-
not-
yeah.
if we could all focus on the actual draft plan and not
Yes.
tech memos. We may have
Yes.
questions on the tech memos, as I did with regard to the
Yeah.
ADA compliance at the bus stops, but we would be limited our comments really to the plan.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Kwaku.
Sure.
So we've already talked about legislation. I think we can just do new items and around the table, if that works for everyone. Taylor, I'm going to call you first since you had something the past 2 weeks. If you're prepared to give everyone.
I am, yes. Hello, sorry, I have to be off screen this meeting. But I represent St. John's College, and I had a student come in last Tuesday morning, and he had been leaving seminar, which ends at 9:30 every Monday and Thursday nights. And he was leaving seminar and coming down St. John's Street, heading toward College Avenue, and he saw a woman get hit by a vehicle. She was able to stand up, but she was taken by the EMTs to the emergency room. I don't know any of the results of that. But he came in because he said that the word on the street, as far as students are concerned, and leaving seminar at that time, is that it's very dark and people can drive at a faster speed than they're supposed to. And very dark. The lighting isn't very good. So he said that night he was going to go to the city council at 7:00. I was not there, so I don't know if he went, but he said he was going to try to have his voice heard. The other thing he did is he went around and he petitioned businesses in the area. And he also said he was going to get a petition for St. John's College students to sign, agreeing with the idea that this was a very dangerous intersection, dark, and he wanted to have speed bumps placed. I tried to talk him down a little and say, I so appreciate you coming in, and yes, it's really important, and decisions like this can take a long time, but it's important that your voice be heard. So I don't know. Karma, were you there? Did he show up? Noah Navarro is his name.
No one showed up.
Okay.
Tara Stout had reached out to me prior to that, telling me about it. I asked for her to give me, if she had access to his phone number to talk, and I was going to encourage him to come. I also called the police department and asked for the police report, which I haven't received yet. They hadn't completed it when I called. But we haven't heard anything else from it.
Okay.
So
Karma, I think part of the issue is now that part of College Ave is opened up again between St. John and Rowell, that there's an inconsistency in the stop signs. If I'm going from the Academy over College Avenue past St. John, I have to stop, but the traffic coming the opposite direction doesn't have to. So if you're going from the circle toward the Academy, you don't have to stop. But in the other direction, you do. And I mean, even at 6:45 in the morning on my way to the bus, I've almost been taken out at Rowell Boulevard and College Ave. So I think the lighting is inconsistent. It's on when there's session going on and they turn on the big portable cameras. But it's not consistent lighting. And the ability for a pedestrian to hit the button and warn people that they're going to cross the street exists at Rowell Boulevard next to the governor's mansion, but doesn't exist down the street between College Ave and St. John. So there is some inconsistency in what you would perceive as being a four-way stop versus not a four-way stop, where you think you have right of way, et cetera. It's a little inconsistent. If it hasn't been looked at in a while, perhaps it should be looked at.
yeah, I agree. I will see if we can get our traffic engineer out there. we have the city, Jeff Wentz, I think, was he on last week? No, or last month, is a traffic engineer for the city. He started, he's worked for the city for some time as a contractor, but he started with the city in January. And he has been a couple of times at my request has been to different spots in the city where we've talked about traffic being a problem, most recently West Annapolis. So I can reach out to him and see if he can meet out there, and if there's anybody else that would like to at the same time, like Taylor, if
Yeah,
you have
I would
somebody.
be happy to. Sure. My
Okay.
schedule's pretty flexible. So he can give me a time and I'll be there.
Okay. Would you mind just shooting me your email
I'll
to
send you
my
my email.
okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll
Florence.
see if we can set that up.
Okay.
Next
Thank you.
around the table, John. Oh, I can't hear you now. Nope.
Thank you,
There
Madam Chair. No, nothing. Thank you.
Zoe?
I just want to give everybody an update that the Route 450 King George Street Bike Path project is continuing to move forward with under the leadership of the State Highway Administration. There is actually a meeting tomorrow, principal investigators meeting of 30% design alternatives to kind of dig into those designs and have a better, give the work group a better and members a better sense of the 30% design concepts and how they would fit in with that existing infrastructure. So more to come following the meeting. I don't know the timeline for selection of the 100, for which alternative to move to 100% design. I anticipate it'll probably be a month to 2 months. So hopefully maybe at the next meeting or the meeting after, we'll be able to identify the plan that is moving forward to 100% design. State Highway is continuing to communicate that they do have funding for this project with anticipating construction date of 2027. So it's a long process, very long process, but it is continuing to move forward, which is good news.
Thank you, Zoe.
And I would say that for those on the board that are tracking, that there still remains 2 design alternatives on the Naval Academy Bridge, as well as on King George Street and Route 450.
Thank you. Vince, do you have anything? He is multitasking. We can come back to him. Forrest?
No, ma'am, nothing for me.
Kurt?
Yes, I would I want to complain about something, and that is the Wee Trail, the bicycle trail that the mayor partly got elected on nearly 8 years ago. It's a wonderful thing. I fully support it, but I just point out with some irritation that this project has been in the planning stages for nearly 8 years, and there's nothing there. So maybe we should come back to this at a future date and try to find ways of lighting a fire under the administration so that this bicycle path is finally becomes a reality. That's all.
Okay.
Kurt,
David?
this is no excuse for the city, but I can't really weigh in on the we, but from my experience, these bike projects take a very, very long time. And part of that has to do with acquisition of right of way.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's, we just had a meeting with State Highway just on the Route 450 King George, and the right-of-way acquisition process and negotiating right-of-way can take upwards of, 18 months to 2 years. So, and you have to sort of have an established plan before you begin to identify what those right-of-way acquisitions are. So, I don't know if that's the case in the city with the I'm not tracking that project that closely. But these projects surprisingly take a very long time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I can't resist pointing out the asymmetry that exists between transportation by automobile and transportation by other means. If the state highway department wants to put in a highway, they don't hesitate to use the tool of eminent domain to put that highway through. But we never, ever even consider that for a bicycle right of way. And it's asymmetrical. I'm not saying it's necessarily incorrect, but it is certainly asymmetrical.
I can't fathom eminent domain for a bike path, Kurt, sorry. I mean, it seems like a reach.
Well, in America, yeah. Not so elsewhere.
There. David
Nothing for me, thanks.
and Ed.
Nothing, thank you.
And Vince, if you're back, we did call for you, but I suspect you're distracted. The one thing I wanted to share was I got an email today about docked bike share ridership in March up significantly. Now, we don't have docked bike share in Annapolis. I couldn't find just regular undocked e-bikes statistics, but they did pick up on the fact that Annapolis actually has the scooters, which I thought was pretty interesting. But anyway, the Department of Transportation has this fantastic Bureau of Transportation statistics. And if you haven't been on there, you could get lost. But there are wonderful graphics, and they may not necessarily pertain to us, but I think at times when we want to understand generally what's going on or whether things are transitioning in a positive direction or a negative one, it might be a great resource for us to go look at the US DOT Bureau of Transportation Statistics. They had names and contact information all over the place. So if you like had a quirky question, you could probably reach out and get a pretty good answer from them. Anyway, I thought it was pretty interesting because City Bike, Capital Bike shares, they're both up significantly in the month of March, more than 10% each. Sort of fantastic. I don't know if it's weather related.
Madam Chair, is that up month by month or month over last year, March?
I thought it was month over last year. Can't seem to find it. Yep, over last year. So, interesting. Anyway, there are stats out there. And I think at one point I said, all this information is online. We're not necessarily great about grabbing it. So if you need anything online and you can't find it, I'm more than happy to help search for information that would augment what we talk about and what we study. And with that, anything else, anyone?
Well, can you remind me back on the agenda when we were talking about the speed camera? What is our plan for that? Is that going before public hearing? Were they asking us for comment on that?
Just think about it, right? So at this point in time, what they wanted to do was amend the law so that the law was consistent with Maryland law. And the Maryland law has a lot of restrictions. The ticket has to be issued by a uniformed officer. It's capped at $40. There are restrictions on the zones in which this activity can occur. So that the legislature, the council, has already passed that legislation to put us in parity with the Maryland law. And then the next question is really going to be, and we'll probably receive more information, but should they install cameras, and under what circumstances should they install cameras, and would it make sense financially to install cameras when you would have to take a uniformed officer off?
Okay, so you're just asking, was a hard and fast timeline for our review?
Fast timeline.
Okay.
No. But we can keep watching it, and it would really be, there are even questions about acquiring the camera. Is it leased? Do you acquire it? Do you have to pay a monthly service fee? I mean, there are all sorts of financial questions around this that I would think would help inform on how many you would want to install. But the flip would be if there are people speeding, and quite frankly, I'm on Prince George, there are people that speed up Prince George all the time. Is it more cost effective than parking a car and having somebody have to have the radar and nail people and then have to drive and chase them down and then come back and do it all over again? It's probably far more efficient for the speed camera to pick up that violation and for the officer to take 5-10 minutes to review it, then be in the car, track it down, all those resources and expenses. So you probably could make a pretty solid case for it being financially prudent. The question is, can you really afford taking a police officer off the beat?
there's a safety issue too. The speed cameras are a lot safer than chasing down a violator.
Right. Yeah, for sure. For all people, other people on the
Yeah.
road, people in the two vehicles, etc. Yep. All right, motion to adjourn.
One last thing.
Oh, and Kwaku has his hand up as
Madam-
well. Yes, Kurt?
Madam Chair, it would be great if you could check with the city to see what the application to fill vacancies is like. I think there are either one or two applications pending, and it would be nice to
Police
ride herd on
officers
it.
pending?
Mhm.
You're saying there are open police officer positions?
No, board member positions.
Oh, sorry.
There's at least one, maybe two applications pending, and it would be nice if you could check with them and encourage action.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more announcement, only because I think our next meeting is May 19th, which is right before commissioning week at the Naval Academy. And the city will be soon putting out, if they haven't already, a list of the traffic impacts and road and bridge closures that are associated with commissioning week. So we try and get that word out early. It obviously causes a lot of congestion and traffic and disruption within the city. But it's obviously a huge economic boon for the community and a real honor for our graduates at the Naval Academy. But this year we will the week prior to commissioning week. So the week of the 12th, we'll be closing the Naval Academy Bridge over the Severn River for a march over. And then the following week, we have the two Blue Angels performances, as well as the graduation on the Friday. So just if there are any, concerns or any additional messaging that you would like us to try and get out, in working with the city on all of our publicity that goes along with it, just let me know. But and we're also continuing to gather lesson learned and ways of alleviating some of the congestion in and around the city during those busy weeks. So just want to leave you with that.
Thanks.
Tony. Kwaku, your hand is up. Your hand is now down, and you're still, your microphone is off. There
Okay.
we go. Did you have something you wanted to say, or are
Talking
you
about the bureau. Now they do have a pocket guide, which is kind of a summary of all the that gives all the information you have for each year, each calendar year. So you may want to look into that.
I don't know.
They call it
Kwaku's breaking up for me. I'm
transportation.
not sure what the message is here.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay. I said when you were talking about the Bureau of Transportation Statistics,
Yes.
they do have a pocket guide. Okay, so that one actually is easy to read. It has beautiful graphics, so it's a summary of all the data. I used to get that one, so if you're interested, you can actually look into that one. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Kwaku.
Sure.
I will look for the pocket guide.
Yeah.
All right. Motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All firm?
Yes.
Done. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you.
participating, and we'll talk next month. I will